OIWPodcast.net.
Hello, all my beautiful people. It is time once again for another amazing episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast. This week, I kind of get to geek out a little bit and talk to somebody about comic books and all things that have to do with comic books. I'm very excited to have on this week's guest, and that's Nick Helms. He is the creator of Original Geek Comics. He is the founder of them, and they have different ones that are coming out here soon. And we kind of talk about this in this episode, as well as talking about Vengeance, one of the comic books that I actually have a copy of. I actually have a signed copy of the very first one. I met this guy back in January, and I'm very excited to have him on. We talk about all kinds of cool stuff, and as some of you saw on Facebook, he makes an announcement at the end of this episode for some exciting things that are coming up with Original Geek Comics, so you'll want to stay tuned to that as well. And for those of you who are here just to listen to the Nick Helms episode, welcome. I hope that you enjoy what you hear, and I hope that you stick around and listen to some of the other great episodes I have here as well. So, if you guys are as excited as I am, then let's get this show on the road.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Hey, Dad.
So where did you actually train at?
I made a really good career out of being able to bump, sell, and I had a punch me face.
I wasn't about to call you Dad, so...
Seriously?
I felt like it was in an anime or something.
People get really mad at those videos for some reason. Like, it triggers certain people, yeah.
Wow.
I was actually lost as an infant, and I was taken in by a traveling group of independent wrestlers.
I love it. I'm excited for this one.
Bro.
Get punched in the face on the daily. Do you always do these interviews with your shirt off?
What?
Man, this guy won't shut up.
All right, everybody. So I'm really excited about this one today. I have a guy on here with me that I met at the Northwest Arkansas Comic Con in January. I actually got a signed copy of a first edition of one of his comics, and I love it. I can't wait to get more of these. He is a comic book creator, if you hadn't gathered that yet. He's also a fellow dad, and his name is Nick Helms. Man, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you, Jared?
Doing good. You know, just got the family all settled down and everything like that. And now it's time for me to do my podcast and, just get out here and talk.
Yeah, I know how that goes. All too well, really.
Yeah, you were telling me you have 5 kids, right?
I do have 5 kids. And
Ooh.
If it sounds crazy, like I said to you, once you get past 3, it really doesn't matter anymore, because at that point you're outnumbered. And so it doesn't matter. It's just crazy past 3. So it's like 4, okay, whatever. 5, okay, whatever. At this point, we're barely here.
Yeah. So I have 2 kids. I have a boy and a girl. One's 11 and one's 12. So I'm starting to get to that age where they have the attitude and stuff like that. So,
ooh,
it's rough. I'm not sure. How old are your kids?
Well, my oldest boy, I have 4 boys and 1 girl.
Oh.
And the oldest boy is 12. And so I totally understand what you're talking about, because I'm dealing with that as well.
Yeah.
And then I have a 10-year-old boy and a 9-year-old boy. And then my daughter is 5. And then my youngest son is 2.
Okay. Well, man, you got the age range there. Then you're going to have lots of fun times.
Yeah. I at once I thought, I was like, oh, look, I can probably see the light now. It's getting, whoa, man. Okay, cool.
I try to get my kids on here every once in a while and kind of talk and everything. And they're actually in my little intro thing that I have at the beginning of the show. And my son, he actually hates that now. He's like, I wish you would change it, because I did it over a year ago. And so their voices were much, more, they were littler whenever I did that. And he's starting to go and, change and things like that. And so he's got the deeper voice and everything. And my daughter just rolls her eyes at me. So, we're at that stage with her.
Yeah, my son's got the voice changing going on right now too, and so like all the time, every time he'll say something to me, I'll
Yeah.
start talking like Christian Bale, Batman. So he'd be like, "Dad," I'll be like, "Dad, I got a question." And he'll be like, "I don't sound like that." And I'm like, "I don't sound like that."
Oh, yeah, kids are fun. I don't know what I'd do without them, but they do make me pull my hair out sometimes.
Oh yes, yeah, they're a blast. But then they go to sleep and they're even better. So.
Yeah, yeah. So the reason why I kind of brought you on here and everything, like I said, we met at Comic Con. I believe it was in January at the Northwest Arkansas Comic Con. Was that your first year being there?
That was the first time I had ever been to NWA Comic
Oh,
Con.
okay. Uh, I've only been there twice. I went the year previous, and it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of cool people, but I was a little bit more prepared this past year and met some people. And I love going to those things. They're a blast.
Yeah, I just started really getting into the con circuit like in near the end of last year,
Mm-hmm.
like September, really.
Okay.
And so like that was my first con of the year, and I've done 3 cons since then, and I got 2 more scheduled for this year. So I'm sure that'll change. I'll probably get some more. But yeah, it's been a blast. So it's really good place to connect.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good for independent people, creators and stuff to go to,
Right.
because there's so much media out in the world these days. Everybody is doing something.
Right.
Everybody's got like, as a podcast, or they got a book or comic or movie or show or something, something YouTube or something like that. Everybody's doing something,
Right.
and there's just this oversaturation of stuff that it's really hard to market
Right.
sometimes, I think,
Yeah.
because everybody's trying. You can do the social media thing, and that's all
Mm-hmm.
good and well, and you can get an audience there, but I think the best place to get an audience like is cons, because you're out there, you're meeting the people, you're talking to people. Some cons you're getting thousands of people there, as you remember at NWA. That
Mm-hmm.
place was packed.
Yes, it
So,
was.
man, Saturday, I don't know, did I meet you on Saturday or Sunday? Was it
It
Saturday?
was Saturday, I believe it was.
Dude,
Yeah.
Saturday, yeah, I'm surprised I even remember, because Saturday was crazy. I think it was open from like 10 to 5, 10 to 6 or something like that on Saturday.
Uh-huh.
And the booth next to me was an artist guy, and I tried talking to him. I talked to him 3 times for a total of 5 minutes once the con started,
Oh, wow.
because that's all the time that we had. I mean, he was slammed
Mm-hmm.
the whole time. He's a really good artist, and people just coming up to my booth and stuff. So I mean it means so that, and if you're listening to it and you're listening to this right now and you're a local creator and you haven't gotten the con circuit, do it. I mean, because it's worth it. I mean, because I was literally nobody knew me up there. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like a featured guest or anything. I just had a little booth. I mean, little booth there, 5x5 booth, and I sold like 60 books,
Oh.
which is really good for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know what that's going to sound to some people that listen here. I mean, because you've had some awesome people. You had J. Michael Tatum on here.
Right.
So, I mean,
That was cool. That was
a so awesome episode. So
yeah.
yeah, see, I listen to the episodes. I like that one, and then the one where you had your band teacher.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so those are some of my favorites so far
Okay.
I've listened to. But yeah, so that may not sound good necessarily him. If he's like, I sold 60 autographs, he's like, hey, okay, that's all right. But to me, that's a lot of
Yeah.
books. Because I only had the first issue of
Right.
Vengeance out then too. So the second issue didn't come out till March. So it was just one comic. I had one comic. So, and sold 60 copies. And so from somebody from a small town and in the center of Arkansas like me, that was a lot. And so I wouldn't have been able to do that unless I went to the con circuit, because once I started doing cons, that's where all my sales have really come from. So like I said, it's a great way. And you know what I noticed? Can I just comment on NWA Con and
Sure.
you guys up there in Northwest? The most friendliest people, the friendliest people, and the greatest people to follow you once they, meet you, the people that still follow you. Because I mean, I stay in touch with several people from that con, maybe up to like a dozen
Okay.
of those people. They still buy stuff. They bought the second issue, or they talk to me on a regular basis, ask me what cons I'm doing, if I'm going to be at so and so con, when the next time they can see me, what cons I will be at, maybe they can make it out, or just liking my stuff. Like I know that you like my stuff a lot, so I mean that matters a lot to someone like me, and so just having that, like I said, just the con experience in a whole. And I know that kind of went maybe a little off of a little tangent there, but I have a tendency to do that. I'm a writer, so if anyone's listening to it, and like, why do you go off on so many tangents? Because I'm a writer, and that's how I make things work. It's because everything comes from tangents.
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, you're right. These are a great way to get to know people. And the thing is, whenever you have like a project like this, like you write comic books and you have these projects that you're doing, and then I have my podcast, and if you're not out there peddling your stuff, a lot of times it's not going to get the attention that it needs and everything. You've got to work hard to get your name out there, no matter how good the product is. If you're not out there trying to sell yourself, then it's not going to get anywhere. So these things are really cool to be a part of.
Yeah. I mean, you can have a basket full of gold, but if you don't show people that, then really does it matter? I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. So,
so the going back to one thing you said, the J. Michael Tatum, I told this whenever he was on and everything, but it still just blows me away. I was wearing my podcast t-shirt, because I'm going to advertise no matter where I go.
Right.
And has the QR code, all that stuff. In fact, JBL, I have a funny story with him. He was one of the wrestlers there. But with J. Michael Tatum, I walk up, meet him, very nice guy. He sees my shirt and he's like, well, what is that? And so I start talking to him and telling him about it. And then at the end, I got a little bit of boldness, and I was like, maybe one day I could get you on the show. And he was like, sure, why not? Just as easy as that, and had I not walked up to him, talked to him, had I not been advertising my own stuff, then that might have not have ever happened.
Yeah, that was just crazy whenever I was listening to you say that. And I was like, first when I saw that he was going on there, I was like, man, what? I mean, Jared just seemed like a normal dude like me, and then all of a sudden he's got J. Michael Tatum coming on. I was like, dude's a legend in anime. Like, and I'm just like,
yeah,
I was just floored. And then when you told the story on there, how you just went up to him and it was just like, hey, want to be on this podcast? And he's like, sure. I was like, man, I could have like, hey, you want to like talk about my comic with him?
Yeah.
Wherever you go.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so I'm actually in the process. There's a few other ones that I want to get on. There's a podcast that I've recently started following, and they started following me. And it was actually, whenever I announced that I was going to have him on, I had them start following me on Instagram, and it's called the Anime Dad Podcast. And he's actually going to help me try to get some more people in that genre, because, a lot of what I have is wrestlers on here, but I want to be able to have more different types of entertainment people on the show. I'm so over the moon glad that I'm able to have you on here. I've never had somebody who's created a comic book on here before, or I haven't had a writer. I've talked to a few writers about having them on, and it hasn't really worked out. I've had people on here who've written books about what they do, but writing isn't what they do, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. So
this is really cool, that I'm, getting all these different aspects on the show.
Yeah, that's what I like about your show. It's just so I can't really place it anywhere. I was like, I was telling somebody about it. I said, he's just has conversations with people. I mean,
Yeah.
some people are just normal people like me and you. Some people are a little bit, a little bit higher than normal people. And then he's had J. Michael Tatum on there. And so, I mean, like, it's just random people and they all do random things. You've had like some wrestlers on here, I believe so, right? Some independent wrestlers.
Yes.
Yeah, not, I think you had a couple weeks ago. I think you had one. And so I was like, telling someone about it. I was like, it's just, you can't really place it. This podcast, and that's what I love about it. It's just like, it's just fun time having normal conversations like they would have if it wasn't recorded. So, I mean, that's basically what it is. That's what I like.
Yeah. So let's kind of get into it a little bit. What is probably one of your earliest memories when it comes to comic books?
Oh, yeah, I can definitely remember that. I was born in 1987, which means that
about my age.
Yeah. So the thing is that really 1987, that means that I grew up in what? The 90s, the early 90s is when I was a kid. And what come out in the early 90s? But Batman the Animated Series.
Great series.
Well, when Batman the Animated Series came out, I was hooked. And that's like the first thing that I can remember really getting into when I was a kid was Batman the Animated Series. And I loved every moment of that. I watched that. I watched the Spider-Man the Animated Series that came on Fox, and the X-Men the Animated Series. And I love the Spider-Man one too. But the one that I first watched was Batman Animated Series. Got totally obsessed with Batman. Started buying some comic books. And that's really how I got into it, was really through Batman the Animated Series, because it's like, who is this? Who is this character? Where does this character come from?
Yeah.
Learning more all about what can I learn about Batman, and so went from that to hey, there's a comic book shop right down the road from my grandma's house. Can we stop here? Let me get some books. Some of the first books that I remember getting was right after the death of Superman and the reign of the Supermen. Some of the books that I bought were those ones, and then I remember some X-Men comics. But I really remember the Reign of the Superman comics. Each one of them had like a different color cover that had just a Superman symbol, but it was like green one, a blue one, and it was Cyborg Superman, Eradicator, and stuff like that. I had all those, and I don't know what happened to them throughout the years, because there was a long period of time that eventually I ended up getting out of comics for one thing or another. I can't really remember why. I think it had just the stuff to do with maybe the way people were towards it, and that's kind of why I got out of it. And living out in the country, didn't really have a comic book shop either, so it's kind of like got into some other things. Still geek centric, and so got out of comics for a while, and I actually just bought at NWO Con, that I got some of those Superman comics that I used to have, the Reign of the Superman ones, with like Eradicator and Cyborg Superman and all those. I found those and I bought those. Totally random. Don't have any other Superman comics, but I was like, hey, I want these because I remember these, and these were my first comics, and I want them again. So now, just in my pool boxes or in my comic boxes here, I just got those random ones. But they mean something special to me. Right. And then I guess really, like I said, I was always, into but I always kept up with what was going on. I still kept up with it, especially with, when the internet age came, the internet age. But really it is, 2000s, early 2000s and stuff, when the internet got really big, I started, keeping up with it. And I've always had, my finger on the pulse of the comic book world, knowing what was going on, watched all the superhero stuff. I pretty much knew everything about like other books, like encyclopedias and stuff like this of, Marvel Encyclopedia, DC Encyclopedia and stuff like that. Right. Other books that had those people, and I was learning all I could about the characters, even though I wasn't buying comics because I could find the other books. I just, wasn't getting comics. And so that's really how I kept into it. And then, I started watching Smallville after a couple seasons after it came out. Yep. Really got into that. So I was really big into Superman and stuff like that. And then I guess really now Jared, I'm pretty much going to go into this hole where my comic idea came from.
Okay.
So just because I think it all kind of weaves together
Mm-hmm.
in a way. So I'm painting a picture here and I paint with broad strokes
All
because
right.
I don't know how to draw. So and so we're at circa 2005, 2006.
Mm-hmm.
2006, 2007. That's about where we're at. 2006, 2007. I went to college, UALR, in case you didn't know, University of Arkansas at Little Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the first ever entertainment editor for the Forum newspaper there. And
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, the first one in 2007 was the first time that they had an entertainment section, and I was the first person to be an editor for
Wow.
the entertainment section. So, little fun fact. And one of the guys that worked under me, his name was Stephen Thrash. He was big into Smallville, and we started talking about, this was getting near the end of Smallville's run. What's the CW going to do after that? What are they going to do? Well, they should make a Batman show. So we came up with a whole Batman thing, a whole Batman show. Wrote a screenplay for it, wrote outlines for 12 episodes, had this whole thing, and it was called Gotham Knights. And I know there's a video game and a show now.
Yes.
I was there first. And what was really weird is the story centered around Bruce Wayne being dead or dying.
Okay.
Which is weird because the Gotham Knights show now is about nice original idea, Warner Brothers. And then it was also before the Batman RIP where he died in Final Crisis. Just fun fact, I killed Bruce Wayne first. Anyways, I have it copyrighted 2006 too, so I mean, just FYI. No, I do like to say that every now and then, just for the people at home.
Yeah.
Not bitter about it, but
not at all. No,
not at all. So we did that, and so I learned how to write screenplays, and so I come up with my own original idea called Vengeance. And in the movie, and I wrote it as a movie, and it was going to be called Vengeance Emergence. And then I was going to do the movie myself. I casted all the roles and everything, and I was going to do it. I found somebody that could do special effects, so it was all good. It was going to work out, and I just didn't feel comfortable with it. I was like, I don't want to do this myself. I'm just going to keep on. So then I just kept on working on it, and I ended up writing 3 movie scripts. And so I had 3 movies. 3 Vengeance movies. Yeah, and I was like, okay, well, now I have a lot. And then I just kept up coming with stuff that would happen. And so I just kept on drawing on this writing on this mythology. And then next thing I know, I was like, well, maybe I should make this as a TV series. So then I wrote some TV scripts, and I wrote some synopsis of TV scripts. And next thing I know, I got 50 to 60 episodes in my head of TV. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do this myself. So then I started casting for a web series, and this had been a couple years at this point. And I was like, I'm going to do this myself. Got it all cast, and then I was like, I don't think I'm going to do this now. I was like, something just didn't seem right. I was like, this doesn't seem right. I'm just going to keep this thing. And then I was like, I don't know what to do. So I was like, whatever. So I just put this all in a file folder.
Uh-huh.
Put it all in a file folder. All right. So now we're gonna go up to, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago. So we're at 2019, right?
Okay.
And I've never could get this idea out of my head. I could never get the Vengeance idea out of my head. And I was like, why can't I get this idea out of my head? Well, I've had it for 12 years in my head. So I had been building it up, had a nice big old file folder full of stuff. Character arc, synopsis, everything. I mean, treasure trove. And I was like, okay. And so I had recently, about 2019, around this time, started getting really back into comics, started collecting comics again. I was like, and so it was about 2019, mid 2019, started really collecting comics again, really getting into that again. And I've been doing that ever since then. And I was like, I love comics. This is my favorite medium. This is what I want to do. I love this. I love comics. I don't know why I ever gave this up. And I read a lot. I've read a lot since then too, and I read a lot of comics in 2019 to kind of catch myself up because it'd been so long, and stuff that I was like, well, I kind of want to see what happened here. We'll see what happened here and see what happened here. And I was like, comics are the best medium. It's just an amazing way to tell a story. And you can get so much into it, and like it's just beautiful art and all kinds of stuff. And then I was like, why don't I do Vengeance as a comic book? I was like, this seems like a smart idea. It's a superhero comic. Wow, it's a superhero anyway. Doesn't that make sense? Why did you not do this all long ago? You're so dumb. Okay. So that's what I did. And so that's as a full, like I said, I'll take you on a journey, and here we are. And so because of all of that, it all came together of where I am now, being a comic creator and into comics and everything. So that's the full circle.
Wow.
There.
Well,
yeah,
that's really cool. I mean, it's funny. You've brought up a lot of things here, and as I'm doing this, I have a notepad in front of me because I'm in my 30s now, and so I forget things if I don't write it down. And so as you've been talking, I've been making little notes here about little things that I've wanted to talk about. You grew up in the same time period that I did, so a lot of your TV watching and comic book watching and stuff is the same as what I did. And it was funny because as you said, you started talking about Smallville, I was writing Smallville down to ask you about it and everything. And that was one that really got my attention again, got me back into comics, was whenever Smallville started. And I was always a Superman guy. I don't know, what would you say is probably your favorite superhero?
probably Batman.
Batman?
Yeah, Batman, and I really like Spider-Man as well.
Okay.
And those are my two. If like my wife was like, you can only get 2 comics a month, I'm gonna get Batman and I'm gonna get Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So that's probably so if knife to my throat, that's probably what I would pick. So I'm gonna say them. Then I got like some other ones that are I also like anti-heroes. So like I'm a big Venom guy.
Yeah.
I really like Venom. So I probably like Venom as much as I like Spider-Man. But yeah, definitely. I would definitely say Batman, but I like Superman, and I really liked Smallville, and I was really into Superman for a really long time during that period.
Yeah.
But it was just, I just come back to the Dark Knight. It's just hard to do it because he's just such a tortured character to me, and just what Bruce goes through and puts himself through as just a normal guy,
Right.
and standing beside gods basically,
Yes.
and able to hold his own, and if he wanted to, he could beat them all down,
Right.
and that's just amazing to me.
He has a contingency plan for each and every one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just that, and, being the preparedness and just the adversity and never giving up that he does, that just means a lot to me because I've never given up on my idea and just went through all the adversity to make my dream, come true. And he does the same. He never gives up. So that I would definitely say Batman. As I look on my wall, 16 different Batman things.
I've got some, pretty cool nerdy stuff over here that I've got on my walls, and I've recently expanded my area to where now I have a 55-inch TV and a futon out here with me as well. So, and I've got some of my game consoles, and so now I got the other side that I can decorate. So I'm excited about that.
Nice. More stuff to buy. Oh,
exactly. Yeah. But yeah, no, Superman has always been probably my favorite, especially after the Superman death. I have the anniversary edition where it has the entire story compiled into one graphic novel.
Nice.
And then I have a bunch of you were talking about the Superman, the ones that came after him. But did you have any of the Funeral for Friends comics?
I don't think so.
I actually have the one in it, I think there were 6 of them total. And I actually have the one where Bill Clinton was written into the comic book to give a speech at Superman's funeral.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And yeah, so you can see him, and you can see even Hillary Clinton standing beside him as the first lady in the comic. And he had he had them write him in so he could do like a eulogy or something at the funeral. But they're really cool comics.
Yeah, I definitely have heard that. I just don't have those, but I'm also wanting to get the thing that you have of the omnibus of the death and return of Superman.
Yes.
So I have my eye on it, and hopefully it's a this year purchase, but we will see. I've bought a lot of books this year, so right now my wife was like, "You're not allowed to buy any more books until you read all of these." But I have a goal to buy 23 books this year on 23. 23 graphic, not books, but 23 graphic novels, comics.
Okay.
And so I think I'm like 12 in right now. So I mean, I'm doing pretty good. Just the other 11 are very expensive, like $100, $150.
Right.
So, those are gonna have to be spaced out later. So we'll see if I go get my goal this year, but
yeah,
that is I also had a goal to just read 23 books or 23 books in general. And now I had to change it to 52 or one every week.
Oh, wow.
I blew through the 23 already.
So
now I'm on like almost on 40. So
you're even ahead of the year, because that's like one a year or one a week, so you're probably gonna have to up that number again.
I read a lot.
So when it comes to collecting comic books, are you more of a collect to read, or are you more of, okay, so this one is graded this mint, and you don't do that, do you?
No, I have one graded book, and it's the first appearance of Red Hood. I'm a big Red Hood fan as well. So like, as much as like, Spider-Man, I said that I like Venom just almost as much. I like Red Hood almost as much as Batman. So the first appearance of Red Hood, I have, when Jason Todd comes back, I have that, which is like 676 or 636, something like that. I don't know right now. It's too far away for me to see.
Yeah.
But I have that graded only because I saw it at my comic book shop, and they kind of like held it back for me, and they're like, I'll give you this at a really discounted rate just for you because they loved me. And so that's the only one, but I really just collect to read. And so I actually just cut down my pull list to only like 10 comics a month or so, because I used to read a lot, like 30, 40 books a month.
Wow.
But yeah, there was a lot of them that I was just like, just reading just because. And there's this like, I'm just reading this because I've already been reading it, it's okay. And so I cut out a lot of those and just went with my 10 favorite. And also some things I like to read in trade better. So like if there's a comic book listener listening, will probably crucify me over this, but I cut Saga off of my list, and it really hurt me. It really hurt me to do that. Because I love Saga. But I didn't read Saga for the first time until like last year before that, and I read it like the first 52 issues in a big trade, in a big omnibus, and I really enjoyed it. Because whenever I read trades and stuff, I can read them I read them a lot faster, because most of the books I've read this year have been, trades and omnibuses, because I read them really quickly. And I just like the feel of a big book instead of, like a comic book. Though I love comics, please don't crucify me. And so just some of the choices I made were of, you know what, I really think I'd like this in trade and reading this all together. And so the books I get now are kind of like, I have to get Batman every week. Or every month. I have to get Nightwing. I got to get, Spider-Man. I got to Venom. I got to get these books because I want to know what is going on. And the other ones, I think, is just like, I can wait on some of these. So.
Right.
All right, Deputy. Dispatch says there's a gas station robbery in progress. Fire it up and let's go. Deputy? Deputy!
Ow!
What's wrong with you? Didn't you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Sheriff. I was just really wrapped up in this story on peculiar turnips.
You're listening to stories about turnips.
No, Peculiar Turnips. It's a podcast with all original stories. Oh, it's a trip. Some of these would be nightmare fuel if they weren't so daggone funny. And some of them will hit you in the feels, too.
Is that why you were laughing and crying earlier?
Well, yeah.
Oh, I thought you got your medication mixed up or something.
Oh, come on. Where else will you hear a story about a lovesick boy who throws a penny in a wishing well, makes a wish for a happily ever after, but a strange man inside the well keeps giving the penny back because his wish is impossible to grant? Or the one about a rose garden that replays your memories right in front of you? I kind of teared up over that one.
How long does it take to rob a gas station again?
Not too awful long. Why?
We probably got time to listen to one of them stories.
For strange, original, and mostly family-friendly stories that you'll never hear anywhere else, catch Peculiar Turnips on Spotify or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Or visit peculiarturnips.libsyn.com. That's peculiarturnips.libsyn.com. Come out to the garden for a homegrown story.
So I recently kind of took a break from reading comic books. I don't know exactly when it was. It was earlier last year, not earlier last year, but it was, besides yours, I really haven't read any because of something that happened. And actually, okay, so it was in November. Were you a Power Rangers fan at all?
Yes.
Okay.
I love Power Rangers.
So I went on November 9th, which was a Saturday, to a flea market that we have here in town. And I bought a bunch of comic books, and one of them was a Power Rangers Shattered Grid comic book.
Okay, and that's the one. Is that the one with Lord Dracon?
Yes.
I don't know how to spell it.
It's Lord Dracon. Or
yeah, okay.
Yes. And so I was reading it, and it turned out it was the one that they were doing Tommy Oliver's funeral in. And I woke up the next morning on November 10th to find out that on November 9th, the same day that I purchased it, Jason David Frank had died.
Oh, man.
And so after that happened, I was like, you know what? I just bought this and I read that. And the same time as I'm reading that, he actually passed. I was like, I've got to take a break from this. It bothered me more than I wanted to say. That was probably one of the first ones that I actually was brought to tears whenever I found out that they had passed, because he was probably one of my first heroes.
Man, same. Of course, growing up in the same era, we of course it makes sense that would both be like that. But man, Tommy was the man. Yeah, and Tommy's arc throughout the show, the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers show, was just amazing. Yeah. So just his whole journey was great. And so I really love the character of Tommy Oliver. And Jason David Frank was, really great guy and had such a love for the Power Rangers. And, whenever COVID happened, I don't know how much if you're listening right now, much of what JDF did during that time. But he actually, went around to all these comic book shops around the world, America, and went there for free, and he didn't charge them anything. And he went there and signed autographs for people and, gave out free autographs and stuff to everybody that came in and met him and stuff. So he just had a bunch of, like little, paper 8.5 by 11 posters of different ones that they had. And so he just gave those out, autographs, for free to help shops during COVID. So.
He's such a stand-up. He was such a stand-up guy. I remember watching videos of him being like sick, and he would still want to be out there meeting his fans and talking to them. And, they'd have to tell him, you need to stop and take a break. You need to eat. and they would have to pull him away, and he'd be like, I'll be back, and he'd come back, because he always cared about his fans. And that's something, such a great guy. And it still breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a horrible day. So the thing is that, lots of celebrity, you can see people get hung up on celebrities sometimes, and sometimes it just seems silly.
Yep.
And to you, because you're just like, I mean, what? It's just it's just another person. But then it actually happens to someone that you care about.
Right.
When, losing Tommy. And it just hit. And then Kevin Conroy passed away. It's like, why would you punch me like that? Like
back to
back. And it was just, you don't. And then it's just like, oh, so when people get upset because, some random celebrity passes away, and you're just like, it's just the host of Jeopardy or whatever, and you're like, come on, man. But the thing is that you're not that person. You don't know how they're feeling and what that person meant to them.
Right.
So you really, really having it happen to you, it really spoke volumes to me. And man, they took out both of my heroes. Because like Power Rangers was my jam, and like I already said, Batman the Animated Series was my jam, and then both passing so soon close to each other, it was just horrible.
That was a rough fall.
That was a bad time. For us early 90s kids. So it was rough, and now I'll never think to someone whenever they have a celebrity pass away and they're upset about it. Like, I get it, man. I've been there before.
Yeah. So, sorry, we kind of got off on a little bit of a sad track there.
Hey, it's okay. Those two deserve that. So they're both great human beings. So that we're champions for the fan base. So
I do want to kind of get back on talking about Vengeance just for a minute and everything. I know that, like you said, you've been working on this for a very long time. Do you have a timeline for how long it'll take you to tell this story?
Oh man, that is a great question. No, I really don't. I'm just telling it, and just as long as I get the ability to tell it, I'm gonna keep doing that. So I mean, it's obviously gonna take more time, time to tell the whole story, and I'm cutting out a lot. So because I just got to be an independent and stuff like that.
Yep.
So
I totally get that.
Yeah, so probably in the long run, I'll probably only make like 12 issues or so of Vengeance if I don't know. So I don't want to like nail it down. But I assume that it's not going to be, like hundreds of what I could come up with. So it's not going to be that. But as long as I get to tell the core story, and, maybe I could tell other adventures in like prose writing, novel, short stories, stuff like that. In case people are like, prose, what does that mean? Somewhere in that, because it's just expensive doing a comic. Art wise is expensive. So who knows? I'm just gonna, as long as I have I'm blessed with the opportunity, I'm gonna keep going. And as long as people are gonna draw it, and I can keep affording it. So God willing, I will keep on trucking on the comic, and that's what we'll do. So but yeah, it's so you never know. I really never know. But as of right now, it's an ongoing book. So
all right. So speaking of, it's expensive. I know that you have one that's coming out called Paladin, that you have. It's the fans have raised money for you to be able to create that comic book and stuff. So that's another one that's been in the works that you'll have coming out here soon, correct?
Yes. So Paladin. So I so like you've said, I am a comic book creator, comic book writer, but I'm also the owner of Original Geek Comics. And so I say that it's a local comic book publisher out of Central Arkansas. And I say that because I have other people on the team besides just me. Because Vengeance is not the only book that we're doing, and I'm not the only writer and I'm not the only person behind the books anymore. I've now, keep on growing the team more and more. And when we were doing the Kickstarter for issue 2, because Paladin was the third Kickstarter I've done, by the way.
Okay.
I did issue 1 and issue 2 for Vengeance as well. So issue 1, and I'm gonna get back to Paladin in just a second. Let me just.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Issue 1 of Paladin, or issue 1 of Vengeance, on the Kickstarter. I just did the Kickstarter for printing the comic book and stuff. I paid for the art and the stuff for the pencils and ink. I paid it all out of pocket. So the funds were literally just for the shirts that we had and the printing of the books. And then in issue 2 of Vengeance, with the budget that I set, paid for half of the art. So it paid for half of the art, and then the other half came out of my pocket, and of course it went towards books and stuff like that. So that's been fun. So Vengeance has been a lot of mostly my funneling of money. So on Paladin, Paladin, I'm actually not involved in Paladin at all, besides being the editor in chief of original Geek Comics. So I'm the J. Jonah Jameson of the comic book of Paladin.
Okay.
We not do anything. It is actually, whenever we were doing the Kickstarter for issue 2, we did an event at Kapow Comics in Sherwood, Arkansas, which is now my comic book shop, because the one that I was going to is shutting down at the end of this month.
No.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah.
So we were doing an event there, and during the Kickstarter to raise, help raise funds, get more attention towards it. And a guy came in, and he as soon as he walked in, we were like, "Hey, how are you?" Because we were right beside the door. And so he was like, "Oh, hey," and he come over there and talk to us. Apparently, he had just walked in because there's an arcade right down the it's a shopping center, and there's an arcade in the shopping center. And he had just walked in there because he was waiting for some friends to get there. So he's just like, browsing, pass some time. So he ends up talking to us. Come to find out, he's an artist. He was an artist, but he had gotten into video game design, and he hadn't done anything of his own. He said that he tried to do a comic 10 years ago or something like that, and just nothing ever came of it or something.
Yeah.
So he left, bought a comic, got my information, ends up sending me some fan art of Vengeance late that night, which ended up pencils, which I ended up sending over to Jake, my artist on Vengeance, who inked it, and then we actually ended up using that as a stretch goal cover for issue 2 of the Kickstarter. And then so I ended up asking him, "Hey man," his name is Cameron Aislinn, and I said, "Hey man, would you like to join our team?" And he was like, "Yeah, for sure." I was like, "You can do this cover, this thing that you sent me, we'll make this a cover for issue 2, add it to the other 3 covers that we have, so it can be a variant cover, and then whatever you want, you got some ideas, you can do those." And then I said, in fact, I said, "If you want, you can color this book is color Vengeance, because Vengeance has been black and white. That's what issue 1 and issue 2 was."
Right.
I said, "But look, we're getting really close to our goal, so we could make our stretch goal of coloring issue 1, and if we hit that stretch goal, then we could do a color issue 2." And Jake ended up making the 3 covers, Cameron's cover, and Ron MC, who's kind of like an associate of my team. He's not really fully on the team. And then Sean Litton, who's on my team, did a variant cover. He colored those covers as well. So we ended up hitting our goal. Then we ended up the stretch goal to unlock issue 1 in color. Then we ended up hitting the second stretch goal, which was our budget was $1,500. We ended up getting $3,000 on that second Kickstarter.
Oh wow!
Which ended up, so we double our budget.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting both issues in color. So now we have Vengeance in black and white and in color, and that's how Cameron joined the team. And so I said that because it kind of has to make sense, because Cameron is the guy doing Paladin. So he wrote Paladin, and fun story, he created Paladin back in 2006 or 7.
Oh,
does it sound familiar?
a little bit.
And he kept pouring into it, making this mythology bigger and bigger until eventually meeting me and learning the story of Vengeance. And they were the exact same type of journey we both had been on, in a way. And so now I am helping him make his dream come true of Paladin, much like I did for Vengeance of my own. So he is writing it, he's drawing it, he's inking it, he's coloring it, he's doing all of it, lettering it and everything. And I'm just putting it out under the original Geek Comics.
Wow.
Yeah, and Jake, my Vengeance artist, is doing a variant cover, and then the new guy that we just added like a month ago, Eric Cushing, who's about to be brought up later, or in this conversation with me and you, he is doing a variant cover on that as well. So, and then Sean Litton, who's also on my team, he's not doing a variant cover for this issue, but Vengeance issue 2, he did do. He made a Vengeance chibi, those chibi things that kids are into, little bitty.
Yeah.
Happy face things. He did a Vengeance chibi, drew one, and which we ended up turning into a sticker, a holographic sticker, and
cool.
It's sold really well. And he did a Paladin chibi, so we got that sticker, which is doing pretty good, which did pretty good on the Kickstarter as well. So he's just going to do chibis for each book that we do, but on the next book that we have, he's doing a cover again. But yeah, so he. But yeah, that's it. That's how Cameron came to be, and that's how Paladin came to be. We just ended that Kickstarter and went the whole month of April, and we hit our goal and a little bit over our goal. Which we were going for a goal. We didn't quite hit our first stretch goal, which was going to get a foil poster for everybody that donated. But since we got really close to it, I'm giving everybody a poster. It's just not going to, but it's just not going to be foil because that is expensive. And I really needed to hit that stretch goal to get that foil cover, but I can afford to get everybody the poster anyways. So I'm doing that for everyone. So.
That's cool.
Support us. I'll support you the best way I can. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't know that you actually. So you said you're gonna have a comic book shop. You have a comic book shop as well, correct?
No. Like comic book shop that I go to.
Okay. So I misunderstood what you said there. I thought
it's all good.
Creating your own because of the one that's leaving.
No. The comic book shop that I go to, Kapow and Sherwood. Just people say my comic book shop when they go to a comic. Man, when I go to comic book shop every Wednesday on New Comic Book Day, and so I'm part of a geek group that goes there.
Yeah,
and so we just call it our comic book shop because we go there, we sit inside there, like we have our little table that we pull out every Wednesday and some chairs, and we sit in the middle of the comic book shop and talk and stuff.
That's cool.
So yeah, then go to lunch, then come back. Lunch is right down that we go to the same Mexican restaurant, a few doors down, come back. So like we say our comic book shop, but it's not mine as in not that I own it.
I got you. Okay. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense.
But they do carry my book in there. So
do they? Okay. Well, cool.
Yeah.
So where all can you find Vengeance at?
Well, unless you live in Central Arkansas in the Little Rock area or in Sheridan, where I'm from, in Grant County, out in the sticks here, you probably won't find it in stores if you go to your comic book shop. But there's like 5 stores in Sheridan that have it because it's a small town, and they kind of call me a local small town celebrity here. It's a joke thing that they ran with, and so I let them have it. They made a Facebook group and everything, so got a couple hundred people on it. So I just let them have their fun, and so they'll take pictures of me randomly if they see me out. So it's kind of fun deal. Small town humor, but and then at Kapow Comics in Sherwood, Arkansas. I hope that Matt, the owner, gives me money for mentioning his comic book shop so much. So other than that, though, yeah, store credit, something. Yeah. Just give me a book. Make my wife happy that I don't spend as much money. I'll probably still spend the same amount of money. I'll just get an extra book. I love to read. If I mention that.
Maybe.
Maybe a little bit, but if you are not in those areas, what you can do is you can go to www.originalgeekcomics.com, and you can order our books there.
Okay.
And all our merchandise, shirts, stickers, all of it. You can go order it all, and then I'll ship it to you. And then if you live in the Central Arkansas area, you can do local pickup, and I can drop it off to you, meet you somewhere, meet you at Walmart, meet you at a police station, wherever you want to meet at, back alley.
Back alley.
Just don't shoot my parents when we're back there. That's all.
Oh, no.
That's all I ask. Read too much. I read too much.
No, it's cool. Yeah. So how many people are actually on your team there at Original Geek Comics?
So we have me and Cameron are writers, and then Cameron is also an artist, and then Jake Jackson, Sean Litton, Eric Cushing. So we're like 5 main guys, and then LaRon McAdoo, or he goes by Ron MC. He's a motivational speaker. He does work with us too, and he's kind of like, but he has his own thing, with his own, and so he's kind of like a branch off of our team in a way, and so he's kind of, but I mean, he did go the last con that was at last weekend with me, so I mean, he said he feels like a part of the team, so I don't know if he's like officially part of the team, but maybe it's kind of like he's kind
honorary.
Yeah, so he's like an honorary part of the team. So
Okay.
we're good 6 guys, all from Central Arkansas area. So
yeah. Well, so we're about to be coming up on a close on here, and I know that there's some things that maybe you want to talk about, but before we get to that, I just had a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
So, do you have any hobbies that you like to do?
I play video games. And besides reading, of course, I play video games. I have a PS5.
Okay.
Currently playing Jedi Survivor.
How is that?
Amazing. So, do you play Jedi? How do you play video games? Yes,
I do play video games. Yes.
Play Jedi Fallen Order.
I haven't. I'm so far behind. You know what? I might as well just say no, because
no, I don't play video games.
Because the newest thing that I'm sporting in my house is a Switch.
Hey, Switches are awesome though. The new Zelda game just came out Friday.
Yeah.
So my kids both have Switches, but I also own every Pokemon game that comes out. I buy it and play it on their Switch. So
man, just because I can't, so much to talk about, man.
Because I can't get rid of it, even though that I'm 35 years old.
Yeah.
Still have to play every Pokemon game. So that's it. That's all I play. So I played that a lot. So again, Jedi Survivor, really amazing. So good. If they do a third one, it'll be the best Star Wars trilogy ever made. So that's legit thing there. So it was just really good. Just recently played God of War Ragnarok. So good.
Oh yeah.
That's such
Love
a great
God of War.
Yeah, the 2016 God of War and the God of War Ragnarok, two best. It's really a duology instead of trilogy, and it's just amazing. But I really like mythology too. So, but I mean, other than that, I really don't do a whole lot. Mainly because I have so many kids. It's really hard to do anything. I watch shows and stuff. I just got into My Hero Academia. So
great show.
Because my buddy Sean, my son Maverick, he's the 9-year-old. He started watching the anime, and then my buddy Sean, I was telling him about, because he's really into anime, manga, and all that stuff, and I was telling him how Maverick got into My Hero, started watching that, and he tells me, "Hey, I got all the manga, and then some 13 of the My Hero Academia Vigilantes. I'll sell you to all of these for $200." And so I bought them all, and they're like 50 manga. So I mean, I gotta steal.
Oh wow.
So I bought them all. And so Maverick started reading them. He's like on 14 now. So I bought this, it was about a couple months ago. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna read it too. So I'm like 6 volumes in right now. And then I started watching the anime too. And really I haven't please don't crucify anybody that's listening to this. I'm so scared every time, like anytime you like say, I mean, I'm a geek. I know it's original geek. I get it. I haven't watched a whole lot of anime aside from Dragon Ball Super because that's what I've always been, Dragon Ball Z, you probably know.
Yeah, exactly.
So exactly Dragon Ball Z and now Dragon Ball Super and that's pretty much another thing. But I mean, I've read some of One Piece. Now I've read more of My Hero, but I started watching the anime and I really like it. I just got finished with the first season.
Okay.
So, I'm getting my anime and manga card. I'm working on it, okay? So it just took me a bit to get here, okay? Like I got back into comics and stuff and just give me my moment to get there. I'm coming, I'm working on it. So that's kind of it that I do, besides watching, some shows with my wife, spending time with my wife and spending time with my kids. I don't do much outside of that.
Right.
Besides
imagine, trying to keep that balance, because I'm sure that doing the comic book and, trying to be able to make sure that you're keeping your balance with your family and being able to read all these things that you want to read and see all these shows that you want to watch, it's very hard to keep that balance. I know that from trying to do the podcast and then, trying to read my comics and play the video games I want and watch TV shows I want and family and, everything. So I can imagine it gets to be very hectic, especially with 5 kids.
Yeah, I used to watch a lot more shows and watch a lot of movies that I just haven't done in the past 5 years once we had my daughter and then my son after that. It's just, I stopped. I used to watch a lot of stuff, but I've had to cut back on all that because, because of my kids.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's way worth it more. So I definitely like the Jedi Survivor, like besides, God of War Ragnarok, I believe that came out this year too. Besides that, I mean, I didn't play, video games for a long time, for like, 6 months or so. I might have turned on my PS5 a couple of times, but I used to play video games a lot. But, I've got to cut back on that. And when I read, usually I read, while in bed, like I'm going to sleep, and my wife will go to sleep and I have like insomnia and then I'm just like, so I'll just turn the lamp on and I'll just sit there and read.
Yeah.
Or, I'll have some off time at work. So I'm a trainer, at my job. And so when we're in class, if I'm not doing anything, so if they're working on something, then I'm reading, or if they're working, on some like an online module or someone else is teaching or something like this, because there's like 3 of us, and then I'll be reading. So I don't really, when I read, I'm not taking away the time from my family.
Right.
So I try, and right now the video Jedi Survivor just came out. Well, it didn't just come out. It came out, a few weeks back. But I just now got it like a few days ago. And so like I will play it a lot right now.
Yeah.
That's but then I'll finish it and then I probably won't touch my PlayStation again for, till fall or something.
Yeah.
So whenever I do get those games, like I play those really quickly, and I spend a lot of time, even with my family around doing it. But then if I do play my video games after this, once I finish Jedi Survivor, I won't play it unless it's like downtime at work or my kids everybody's asleep and it's just me late at night. I won't take that time away from my family, just like I don't read and stuff mostly, for a majority of the time whenever my family's awake and wanting my attention. So I've tried to get better on that. I think the boys, my older boys, 9, 10, 11, 12, I think maybe when they were younger, I probably took some time away from them doing my own thing from them that I shouldn't. And so now with these younger ones, and hopefully the boys are, know that I'm sorry for that time, but I'm doing better now.
Oh yeah.
So I'm trying to be I try to be a better person tomorrow than I was today, and be a better person today than I was yesterday.
That's the best you can do, man.
Yeah. And so like I've really the past, 4 or 5 years just trying to do better. Yeah. And being a better parent is really because I mean, I can sit here and talk to you about all this comic book stuff and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, if my wife was like, "I need you to stop all this and just be a better dad and just be a better husband," well, sorry guys, but
family comes first. Yeah,
family comes first. This is what would happen. Vengeance. Have a good day. You know, I would drop all in a heartbeat. So, but my wife's a great supporter of the comic books. She was at the con with me.
Yes,
you met her as well. So, I mean, so it's pretty cool that my wife goes to that. So she's definitely a big supporter.
It's definitely nice to have a supportive spouse. Mine makes all of my merch for me. You know,
sweet.
Yeah, so she's been really supportive. So yeah, no, I totally get that. Having a supportive spouse it helps your creative side a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've done other creative stuff in the past, and she really wasn't Matt supporter, so that's another thing that she worked on. You know, for once I started doing the comic.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I think she saw the way I was when I started the comic and how much it means to me, and really she saw that this is what I've always wanted to do, and so I think she saw the other stuff as maybe she saw the writing on the wall long before I did. It was like, you're not supposed to be doing this stuff. But then when I started in comics, this is what you are supposed to be doing. And I think especially going to the cons with me, especially NWA Con, she was really super impressed with that. So I mean, I was impressed with it too. So it's been fun, you know, and like I said, you know, even though some of my extracurricular stuff that I do hobby wise is kind of falling to the wayside, I think at the end of the day, what's better is I can always pick that stuff up later. That stuff will still be there, you know, 10 years from now when my youngest one is, you know, 12, and he doesn't have time for me, and no one's giving me attitude like the oldest one does, and doesn't want to, you know, hang out with dad, most of the time. Then you know, then I'll be able to get back into stuff, and that stuff will still be there. So
that's true.
And then I'll just be some old guy as they're playing PS7 and stuff, and I'm still got my PS5. Oh yeah,
dude, I'm playing a PS3. Me and my son are.
See what I mean? PS5, PS3. That's the same. That's the same gap.
Exactly. I mean, my son and I were playing Injustice: Gods Among Us last night.
Oh God,
you know,
one of my favorite video game series and my favorite comic book. That's my favorite alternate Earth comic book of all time is Injustice.
Mine too. Yeah.
I got the first two omnibuses I got the omnibuses, both of those for Injustice 1, and I'm really pleased just release Injustice 2 omnibus. That's all I really want in life.
Yeah.
So, but I love that.
So there is something that you mentioned on Facebook for those of you who are listening to this because of the Facebook post that you saw. I guess this will have been a week ago when this airs. You had something that you wanted to talk about on the show, so I'm going to give you that opportunity to kind of talk about whatever that was that you wanted to bring up, man.
Yeah, Jared. So I wanted to make this you know, we've been trying to make this podcast happen, the two of us, for like 4 months. So just now where we both got an opening to and my daughter just walked in the room. So if you hear a child, she looks like she's just going to sit on the floor. Okay. We'll see. But if you hear a child, as you know, you're listening to, if you give a dad a podcast, so if you invite a dad on a podcast,
you're going to hear kids.
You're going to hear kids. But anyways, and I wanted to really make it special. I was like, because you seem an awesome guy. You bought my book and stuff, and you know, we've kept in touch, and you know, liking my stuff, and I listen to your podcast. And so I was like, I want to make this special because, you know, being a fan of your podcast and what you're doing, I was like, I want to make this special. Well, I just got done last weekend, as of this recording. I ran my first ever Comic Con of myself. Co-ran it. And it was the Sheridan's first ever Comic Con. It was called Green Ribbon Con. And it was for charity, raising awareness for mental health. I have mental health. One of my sons does as well. My friend that I co-ran the show with, a couple of his kids deal with mental health issues. We're really big proponents of mental health over here.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that it gets enough awareness. And so, you know, even my aunt writes mental mental health off. So it means a lot. It means a lot to me.
Yeah.
So wanting to do something for that and do it for charity and making a charity out of it. We're in the process of making a 501c out of it, so we can do more stuff to raise money for mental health, and being able to bring the first ever Comic Con to Sheridan, Arkansas. And in case you don't know where that is, it's in Grant County, Arkansas, and it's literally a hick town of 3,000 people. And so we're literally small town. Arkansas, right next to Poen, Arkansas.
How far is that from Little Rock?
45 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad.
South.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to the same school in Poen, Arkansas that Justin Moore did, country singer from Arkansas. Yeah, so that's like 10 minutes down the road. So we're from that area. We're from a small town USA.
Yeah.
And so being able to do that first Comic Con was a huge deal. And it was really fun time. But the reason I say that, to mention that, is because I announced a new book coming from Original Geek Comics, and I haven't announced it publicly yet. It was just the con exclusive. And so I was like, you know what? I want to announce it publicly on Jared's podcast. So that's what I'm going to do. And so that's what I really want to talk about, is that book. And so then once the people hear this podcast, it'll be, breaking news. Courtesy of Jared with If You Give a Data Podcast. So
well, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'd be not as big as J. Michael Tatum saying some news, but hey, I will. That's something you should take to your grave. Just FYI, I had J. Michael Tatum on my podcast. But anyways, the book is written by me, and the art is by Eric Cushing. As if you recall a while ago when I was naming my team, he's the new guy that we just added, who was part of our group of comic book people, but no one ever knew that he can actually draw really good. And then he was like, "Oh, I can draw." Then you find out he's really amazing. Really kept that information to himself for a long time. Glad to have him back on the team. Glad to have him on the team, though. And so he's doing the art, and the book is called The Eighth Day.
Okay.
And so, if you want, I can give you a little synopsis about it. I can really,
yeah.
I got a synopsis here.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of lengthy, not really lengthy, but if I say it myself, I don't think, just give you my words. I tend to have a tendency to talk too much and ramble. And so let me just read this for you.
Okay.
So in the year 2060, freedom is a distant memory as the world is ruled by one governing body, a man simply known as the Father, who has not ever been seen by anyone alive. And one of the most important decrees put into place by the Father was the decree of the eighth day. Now, this decree, it introduced another day into the systematic calendar. So there's still like 365 days a year, but there's 8 days instead of 7 days. And the eighth day, you worship the Father, because he kind of sees himself above God, in a way. So, yeah. Okay. So that's, seventh day, Sabbath day, you're supposed to keep it going. Well, the eighth day, you keep it for the Father. Thinks he's more important. So the world population is now in hundreds. So we're looking at post-apocalyptic here. All of which, and all the people, the hundreds of people, are gathered into one city called Basel. That's Basal, where food and shelter are a scarce commodity. Anyone who dares steps out against their ruler or commits any crime is quickly taken out by a robotic race called the Keepers. So you get these giant robots that are kind of ran by the Father, kind of like his henchmen in a way, and they're like massive robots. And the book centers around, and I'm kind of also giving you some tidbits while giving you the synopsis. So
you're good.
Yeah. So the book centers around a 16-year-old boy whose name is Apex. He does all he can to keep himself and his mother alive. And so he gets a sudden illness, but it ends up having a change for good in him. And with the gift that he's been granted, he decides that the time is now to take on the Father and his race of keepers. And in the book, we're going to hopefully answer a few questions like, what happened to the age of heroes? Who is the father, and can he be stopped? But these questions, they must be answered as young Apex goes on his quest through Basil to return the world to its former self. So yeah, that's a good synopsis of the book.
Wow.
So it's basically what we're doing in Original Geek Comics is that we're building Original Geek multiverse.
Okay.
And so because once the vengeance is and I have other ideas of other things that I've talked about before, because I was going to do this superhero book called Anubis, and I'm eventually going to go back to that. I almost made like a podcast, but audio
like an audio drama.
Yeah, audio drama. Thank you. Called the Rip-Offs.
Okay.
And so they're a group of cosplayers who end up becoming superheroes. And
that would be interesting.
So that was going to be in the same universe as well. And so then there's a couple other things that I've been working on when I was working on Vengeance and building that up idea. I came up with some other superheroes that eventually that I want to do either through comics or through some type of short stories and stuff, where all this stuff would be in in our comic book universe. So then when Cameron came along, we made, and making Paladin, he wanted that to be in a separate universe. So then I made basically a multiverse map.
Okay.
And gave everything a multiversal designation. So like the main designation universe for the OG comics, which is the Vengeance verse, basically, because that's where we started. That's U501.
Okay.
So Universe 501.
I like that.
Yeah. And so then whenever I told Cameron about it, he come up with his own designate, which is Universe 612. So that's the Paladin universe. And then I have another thing that I'm wanting to do, which I think I'm going to do it as a book series. And it's a horror book series, and that would be Universe 479. So the 8th day is set in Universe 870. In the 479, the horror universe, by the way, it'll make sense because that's actually where my story is set in. So
okay.
So that's why it's for. So it's set in Northwest Arkansas.
Okay.
So that's why it's 479. Yeah, I use their area codes.
I know. I was picking up. I was like, is he gonna do 870?
Yeah. So yeah, the 8th day is in the universe 870, but it's an alternate future of the universe U501.
Okay.
So it's like, there could be some people that are mentioned or small characters or stuff from the 501 universe of Original Geek Comics.
Okay.
Because so I mentioned what happened in the Age of Heroes. So we'll see the history, basically we're like 40 years into the history of whenever the Vengeance first started.
Okay.
But it's alternate, post-apocalyptic, everything went bad. What happened? What caused this to the world to be like this? Why is there no superheroes until Apex gets his power? Who, what all happened? So something that, and so I was actually, when I come up with this idea, and I ended up was going to have when I was, I told you I wrote TV shows of Vengeance, and I actually was going to have an episode called 8, where Vengeance goes, gets sucked into a hole or whatever, and ends up in the 8th day universe. And so, and then he was going to know what happened and be able to come back and then stop it from happening on his world. So, so I don't know how it'll all tie together, but comic wise, but it will happen. So
I'm all excited over here. I am ready to see all of this transpire. I feel like whenever they first started making all the Marvel comic books, you're like, yes, I want to see what happens next. And I'm very excited to see what happens in all these worlds.
Yeah. So it's kind of like in a way, it's like the ultimate universe of Marvel Comics, which, by the way, I just got finished reading. I did like about 10 months of reading the entire Marvel Ultimate Comics line, which is 703 issues. That was a fun journey. I read all those in a little over a year. Yeah. So it's kind of like that in a way, except it's really messed up version. Because I don't know if you read any of the Ultimate Comics, but they're just basically alternate people. And my kids are in the background, by the way, now.
Oh, you're good.
So so basically it's just the alternate, but really, really bad, messed up, like Days of Future Past, X-Men messed up version of the normal universe. And so
like Old Man Logan.
Yeah, something like that. And so getting to be able to play in the ideas that I have and being able to do the stuff at the same time and be able to tell both stories in a way and I think it'll be a fun thing for people to do and the venture to go on with me, and seeing that, because then I can make references to the other stuff that we're doing and see what it's like in this post-apocalyptic version of what else they're seeing, what being able to bring seeing what with vengeance and stuff. And so being able to see maybe like a flashback, which I've talked to Eric about, having a flashback, but then we see like vengeance vengeance in this 8th Day universe, but him be different, and obviously
it'd be
he's dead now.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I like that. That's really cool. Man, you got me pumped about this. I wish I could just like start reading them all now.
Yeah.
So we're kind of coming up on a close here for the show. And where is it that people can follow you and follow Original Geek Comics at?
Yeah, so you can go to facebook.com/Original Geek Comics and also Instagram at Original Geek Comics. So we're on both of those social platforms under Original Geek Comics. Very simple. So
all right.
I'm trying to make everything just easy brand together. So
I wish I would have done that whenever I first started creating all of my stuff, because Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter all have different tags. So I wish I would have just created them all the same.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Yeah.
And so I understand. And so like whenever I did it, I was like, I need to get all these right now. They're all available. I'm spending whatever money I have, and if I have to pay some people off, I'll do it. So because I just was like hated that back when I've done other stuff and having to tell, well, on this we're blah blah blah, but on this we're blah blah blah. And it was just it's a slog.
All right, man. And is there any last things that maybe you want to say to the listeners before I get you off of here?
No, I think, I probably said enough. But yeah, so if you don't mind, checking us out, originalgeekcomics.com to get the books.
Yeah.
I'll get it shipped out to you as well. Check out Vengeance, issue 1 and issue 2. I think they're a good story. I am biased, of course, so
they are a good story.
But I mean, it's pretty good, I think. And maybe because I've been working on it for so long.
Yeah.
And I really am to the classic comic stuff. I want to leave you hanging on that last page. I have a letters page. I told my story of vengeance in the first issue at the end of that, but then I have letters in the end of second issue.
Yeah.
So, I'm really into that type of feel. So I mean, it's good. And so if you want to, hop on the early beginnings, of a universe, of a comic book universe, this is the place to do it. And it's, we're all from Central Arkansas. We're all from Arkansas.
Yeah.
So especially if you're from Arkansas listening to the podcast, but if you're not, you're okay too. I like you as well. So check us out though. So.
All right, man. And I will put links to all of this in my show notes. That way people can find it as well. But man, it has been great talking to you. I've had a wonderful time, and I'm going to have to get you back on because there's a bunch of stuff that we didn't even get to touch on. So
awesome. Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right. Well, you have a good night.
You too.
Hey everyone, this is Brian Ferguson, the host of Bumps and Thumps, the Talk of Wrestling. We are on today because of you. And in order to continue the podcast and get the guests on here that require some financial compensation, we're going to need help from people like you. Right now, we're attempting to get our YouTube videos monetized through YouTube. We need 1,000 subscribers in order to do that. So I have decided that if the 1,000 subscriber will get a free t-shirt like this from me and come on the show as a guest on the podcast. So subscribe today, and that 1,000 subscriber will be contacted by me and be given a t-shirt and come on the show. So subscribe today. If you already have, thank you. If you haven't, please do, and tell your friends and subscribe today, and we'll talk to you soon, and enjoy the podcast.
With the blessing of the city of Brantford and Brantford Apparel, Brantford Wrestling presents Drop Kicks for Devon. Brantford's biggest wrestling fan, Devon Ryan, suffered an accident in January of this year. The communities of Brantford and of pro wrestling are coming together to support Devon through this time. June 10th, at the Boys and Girls Club of Brantford, 2 Edge Street, Drop Kicks for Devon promises to be one of Brantford's most exciting nights of wrestling action of all time. Stars from around the world set to appear from PEI, Bradford Montague, from Kurdistan, the Monster Karoo, and as recently seen on AEW and WWE television, KC Spinelli will be in action. Then, in the main event, as Devon was Pretty Ricky Wilde's biggest supporter, Pretty Ricky will be defending his Brantford Heavyweight Championship against John Greed inside of a steel cage. All proceeds go directly to Devon's recovery. Follow Brantford Wrestling at BTFD Wrestling for all updates. Fans, you do not want to miss this night of action, and you must be in the venue to witness this spectacle.
All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Nick Helms. He was a really fun guest to talk to, and I just really enjoyed just talking to him. Even afterwards, you know, he's a very down to earth guy and a lot of fun. So I can't wait to bring him back on and talk more about that, and I can't wait to see what happens next with Original Geek Comics. It sounds like they've got some really cool stuff planned, and like I said, I have links to their stuff in my show notes, so make sure that you go and follow them and keep up with everything that's going on with them. So I've got some really good ones coming up over the next few weeks, and if you stay tuned to my social media, you will be able to see who will be coming on the show. I've got everything from wrestlers to even metal singers and things like that over the next few months. Even I'm actually planned all the way through July right now. So I am very excited about some of these guests that will be coming on. You guys are really going to enjoy them. I've got some that you guys have requested that are coming on. So yeah, just stay tuned. Keep a lookout on the social media for all the different things that will be coming here to iGetApp. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do so by going to Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or even Snapchat or TikTok, and just look up If You Give a Dad a Podcast. I am on all of those, and I update those regularly. So yeah, just stay with me on those, and you will see all the cool stuff that I have coming up. As you saw over the last week, I am bringing something back that I did last year, and that is the Rad Dad Shout-Out. Over the next few weeks, leading up to Father's Day, I will be doing a Rad Dad shout-out, and that is where you can send in either a recording of you talking about somebody that you want to give a shout-out to, that you believe is a good dad, that deserves to have a shout-out, or if you just want to write it down and send it to me, I will read it. But yeah, send it in. I love to do this, so we're going to recognize the dads in our life on this show. So send me your stuff. I want to hear it. You can either send it to me over social media, or you can send it to me on my email address, and that is giveadadapodcast@gmail.com. If you just want to send me a line and say, hey, I like your show, or I don't like your show, send me something. I love hearing from you guys, and I can't wait to see what happens next and what you guys send to me, because it is a lot of fun to interact and talk with you guys. As you're listening to this episode, please go and rate and review it. The more people that do that, the more exposure that it gets. So if you go and you give me a thumbs up or you give me a star rating, then I'm more likely to be recommend it to somebody. So if you like this show and you want it to be spread around, share it, rate it, review it, do all those things. Let everybody know how much you like If You Give a Dad a Podcast. So I want to give a shout out to both of my podcast networks that I'm a part of. That is the OIW Podcast Network and the Avenue Podcast Network. Both great networks, have lots of great different shows. I found some really cool ones that I really enjoy listening to, and I'm sure that you guys will too. They have everything that you could ever think of in the way of podcast, whether it be a travel podcast or just a show that talks about wrestling or talks about video games or even just talks about nothing, kind of like my show, where I just have guests on and we just talk about all kinds of stuff. You will find all kinds of great shows on both of those podcast networks. I will have a link to both of them in my show notes as well. Merch is coming. Waiting on my shirts. They will be coming soon. I will be placing stuff on social media once they are ready. You can order them directly through me, or you can follow the link for my wife's page. That is Cups and Teas by Stasha. You can either buy my merch on her stuff, or you can just order it directly from me. Whichever one that you prefer. You can do either one. I also want to say thank you to D-Cure for making my ending theme song for me. He is such an awesome guy. He created such an awesome ending theme song for me, and I really appreciate him. I appreciate everything that he does, all the music that he comes out with. He has been in the booth with lots of really cool people that I would love to get on this show as well. And so you never know what will happen in the future. I'd love to get him back on the show. I've talked to him about it, and he's down to coming back on. So be on the lookout. Maybe you'll see him on here again sometime later this year. I love you guys. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye.
On. He calls us beautiful people, then tells us who we have on. The best part of my day, though we're blocked out in my pods. Tell my friends all about it so that they follow along. And the host is kinda nerdy, but guess what, I am as well. I don't feel so alone, and I began walking out of my shell. Heard a story, I needed connection I haven't felt. I'll be looking for the next one, till then farewell. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. Listen closely, download and tune in remotely. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. And listen closely, download and tune in remotely.
This podcast is part of the OIW Podcasting Network.